this X-Files episode shouldn't have had a monster in it. And I watched the X-Files for the monsters. But when it all comes together as a whole, last night's episode, really shot itself in the foot. I know they only have 6 episodes and they want to make an impact, and the monster segments in this episode are scary, and they feature some of the most brutal kills I've ever seen. Now, I haven't watched modern horror movies like The Saw or anything, because I can just barely stand stuff like Lord of the Rings where they briefly slice off an orc's head. Here it's more brutal even than that. I mean, people get ripped in half and it's just kept off screen. I'm surprised it got past the FCC. I'm pretty sure if you put these kills in a video game, you get an AO rating. But that's enough to complain about the rating system. They are effective and they work. And there are some parts of this episode that work. Mulder has one part where he talks to 2 people who are both talking about how much they care about the homeless problem, which doesn't even get me started on the way this country government policies create economic conditions where businesses start to fail, and when businesses start to fail, they lay workers off. Then when you get laid off, you can't pay your bills, so you end up on the street. Then they make it a crime to live on the street, so you get arrested for vagrancy. So then you get arrested for vagrancy, and on top of smelling bad so that you have trouble getting a job, you then have a criminal record for vagrancy, so you can't get a job, and it becomes a vicious cycle. That's my big gripe with modern America's economic system. But please don't take that to mean that I'm a communist. There has to be a middle ground here somewhere between communism and capitalism. But anyway, one of my favorite lines in the series is Mulder. He's talking to these 2 people. He says, "I hear you speaking for the homeless, but really you're talking to yourself. But really you're talking for yourself. And I hear you speaking for the homeless, but really you're talking for yourself." And he just like shuts down their debate because he has murders to solve. This is a Scully-centric episode, and that's another thing that makes me so upset that it's weak. Scully is such a strong, interesting character that to give her a weak episode. And here's the thing, none of the scenes with her are weak, even though they are a little cliched, and there's a couple of questions I have to ask, like if her mother was holding out for her estranged son, why coming back into her life, why on earth would she sign a do not resuscitate order? And also, I think originally this was a story where something creepy was going on this hospital ward, because there were like 2 other people who, like in rooms right next to Scully's mother, who also had do not resuscitate orders and are just taken away. And the people are filmed so that they're really creepy, but who take them away. When they take away the bodies, it's filmed really creepily, and it's like Scully's mother getting taken away because she's an organ donor, and don't take this the wrong way, I'm an organ donor. My dad's life was saved by an organ donor, so I have nothing against that. But no, it just seems like there was a creepy story here about, black market organ harvesting or some sort of experiment gone wrong, and that it was shoved in with this story about the homeless and these brutal killings of anybody who goes after the homeless. I'm avoiding all behind-the-scenes information on this mini-series, so if I'm missing something, please forgive that. But I wanted to avoid all, and I mean all, spoilers. So I mostly avoided the trailers, and except for the ones that came on during football games, and I've ignored every single thread or Facebook page on the internet that has to do with this. I'll catch up on the behind-the-scenes info after this series is done. But the one thing that somebody did tell me was that this was originally going to be 8 episodes and it was shortened to 6. And I'm wondering if behind the scenes episodes 4 and 5 were like crammed into one episode because they didn't want to lose the ideas in either, but it ends up not serving either of them well. And like for the first half hour, it's actually a solid Scully focused episode, focused on her personal life, and I think it will inform her character if we get another season, which I'm hoping we do, because so much is being set up that could be possible light plot arcs without having to make the mistake of making everything driven by a plot arc. It seems to have found a balance that the X-Files was having trouble with in the later seasons, and it seems to have realized that maybe we should have focused a little more on the fallout of, particularly for Scully, of her giving away her son in the show. You know, they seem to have listened to fans there and gone, yeah, you know what, that probably should have had more of an impact on the character. But yeah, the proof that it's two episodes joined together is like in the last 15 minutes after her mother finally dies, Scully goes, I need to work, I need to work. And that moment, Gillian Anderson, I don't know how to pronounce her name. Some people say it Jillian, but it looks like it's spelled Gillian, and yet that gets mocked sometimes. But I don't know. Gillian Anderson plays it well, so does David Duchovny, and I actually believed it. I was like, okay, makes sense. There isn't anything you can do about this tragedy, so you need to push forward with something else. Okay, that makes sense to me. And you're strongly insisting on it, despite the fact that you're in tears, because otherwise you'll be completely broken down and non-functional. Okay, I get that. But then the next scene, it's like a typical X-Files episode, which makes me think that the monster segments in this episode were filmed as part of a completely different episode, because apart from a couple of lines here and there, it's not really referenced, and the monster doesn't have any sort of satisfying conclusion. We get an explanation for him, which is kind of neat. Stuff about ideas coming to life, you know, sort of Forbidden Planet sort of logic, you know. Monsters from the id sort of thing. But then the episode sort of ends with the monster making one last kill, Mulder and Scully just giving up looking for him, and they even give up looking for the guy who says he created the monster. They just sort of give up. She scatters her mom's ashes, and that's it. It's a very weak episode. It would have been a strong episode. Either of the episodes making up would have been strong on their own, but I think what they would have had to have done is they would have had to have either done creepy things happening at the hospital where Mulder's mom is being kept, where Scully's mom is being kept. Have I been saying Mulder for this whole review? It's Scully's mom who's in trouble if I have. Sorry. I'm tired. We have a lot going on at my house right now, so forgive me if I get names turned around. But they would have had to be either that it's totally focused on Scully and her relationship with her mom, which it does a good job, and it's all about getting Scully to the point where I think the only thing that's going to play out in later episodes from this is going to be that Scully's mom's death, and something about Scully's mom's death has caused her to want to find William, her and Fox's son, who she put into hiding. And I don't know, because it seems to conclude, because the episode seems to conclude, because I'll give them this, they didn't go the easy route on this. On every other TV show I've seen in like the past 10 years, 10, 20 years, they go the easy emotional route. Once they have the character saying, I just want to know he's okay, or something like that, once they have that or over something, they just have them instantly deciding, okay, we'll find them. But no, here they're sticking to the universe, and they're sticking to what makes sense and what is smart, in that she wants to know he's okay, but she also knows that the only way for him to be okay is if no one on the planet, including him, has any idea that he's her son, and that she has no idea where he is. So it's more of like, it does have a pretty downer, heartbreaking ending that lands, but it's just two episodes spliced together, and they kill it. They need either something creepy happening in the hospital, or they needed to be as brave as Star Trek The Next Generation was when they made the episode Family, which had no science fiction elements in it and just had personal problems being dealt with by the crew. But as is, I cannot recommend this episode. The only thing you really need to know is that there are some emotional events for Scully that might, if the season gets renewed, and despite this below par episode, I really hope it gets renewed, because every show has below par episodes. Even when you're only doing 6, they can still slip by, especially if your order is suddenly reduced from 8 to 6, as appears to be the case with the X-Files. So I hope it gets another one. The only thing you need to know is that Scully may be thinking about looking for her and Mulder's lost son, but that's it. Yeah. So this is slightly below average. It would be much lower on the scale, except that Gillian Anderson is so good in it, and the monster kills are so creepy and gory, and they just go beyond anything I've ever seen on broadcast network television. And they show that broadcast network television can still shock you. You don't have to go to cable to get something really shocking like this. And it's like, it's about, as content wise, it's about as far as I want to go on the shock meter. So yeah, slightly below average, 4.5 out of 10.